What's going on, guys? This is Empty Box, and today we're going to be taking a look at iRacing's newest release, the Nissan GTP ZX Turbo IMSA GTP car. This is the counterpoint to the Audi IMSA GTO 90 Quattro, whatever the heck that thing's called. Released last week. This is the counterpart to go alongside that car in a series. Be a multi-class series, obviously, this being the prototype, the Audi being the GT car. But holy bejeebus, there's a GTP car within iRacing. Just like straight up out of nowhere. I can't say I'm disappointed at all because holy cow, heck yeah. Thumbs up on that one. But what is a GTP car for those of you guys who don't know? Think Group C cranked up to 11. You know, you had your Group C cars that were being run in Europe and as well as originally in the GTP class here in the IMSA series. You know, cars like the Porsche 956, later the 962, you know, this Mercedes Sauber C9, the Toyota 88 CV. You guys who are more familiar with Gran Turismo will know as the Minolta. You know, the Mazda 787B, the various Jags with their V12 goodness and all sorts of things like that. Those cars only made more specialized as time went on. And they got more specialized because the tracks being run here in North America were a bit different than what was being run in Europe by the Group C cars. The tracks here in North America being a little bit tighter and twistier and placing a higher emphasis on the level of downforce that was generated by the cars, and therefore they went crazy. And the rulebook allowed them to. So you end up with cars like this, which just one look at the rear of that thing should just say, holy crap, that's a heck of a lot of downforce. These cars have some of the highest levels, if not still the highest levels of downforce ever produced by a circuit racing car. It's incredible. And it's awesome, because that was a thing. So basically what ended up happening, you started off with the cars like the 962, which were relatively straightforward, quote-unquote, Group C style cars. And then what ended up happening is it basically escalated into an arms race. If you wanted to go fast, if you wanted to be competitive, you had to get crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier. And you got cars like this. Later on, the AAR Eagle Toyota was a dominant car and was just even crazier in terms of how much downforce can a car produce. It puts Group C to shame in that sense, but it's still just as awesome as Group C. If you like Group C, you're going to really like these cars because you will like them for the same thing. They're incredibly fast. You know, they're 80s technology. They look cool. They look like spaceships in their own futuristic way, as well as they look very purposeful. How can't you like it? Seriously. No, this isn't my favorite looking car, but holy bejeebus, it looks right. So anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at the garage screen. You have your standard tire pressures and everything as per iRacing. You have two options for the dive planes. In my testing, there's not really a huge difference. It's about 3 or 4 miles an hour at Daytona going to the low downforce. You know, again, not really a huge difference, but in that particular case, you know, it will definitely make a nice little bump in your speed. You have adjustable spring perch offset, that's your ride height control, spring rate, compression and rebound damping front and rear, camber and caster at the front, and then obviously the standard adjustments at the rear as well to go along with it. Fuel is measured in weight rather than volume, as is normal here in iRacing for the downforce cars. And the reason that is because with a downforce car, especially a ground effect car, the ride height is very critical in generating peak levels of downforce. So those two need to be coupled, which I guess it makes more sense than putting in volume when you need to know the weight of the car for the ride heights and all sorts of calculations and shenanigans. Something like that. So it goes up to 198.5 pounds or 90 kilos of fuel. Go ahead and put a medium fuel load there on the car. And this toe-in, toe-out trick was mentioned in the iRacing release video for this car, so I figured I'd go ahead and test it out. If it worked on the real car, maybe it'll work on the virtual thing. Who knows? It has an adjustable rear wing, 10 positions. Position 1, hole 1 is the lowest downforce. Position 10, hole 10 is the highest downforce. It has a rear anti-roll bar. There is no front anti-roll bar, worth pointing out, but apparently it was in the car in the real world. However, it was never actually connected in racing or testing scenarios. It was done originally, but they decided it was just pretty much useless because the springs on this thing were so stiff as it is a ground effect car, so keeping the car level and stable and controlling the attitude of the car is crucial for generating the downforce. Has an adjustable final drive ratio as well as independently adjustable gear ratios, and it has the standard iRacing gear differential that you should be familiar with if you're driving here. But you have your power side, ramp angle, your drive locking, as well as your coast side. So pretty standard there, and let's get this show on the road. Okay, let's get the show on the road here. This car is a 5-speed manual H-pattern gearbox. Yes, 5-speed, not 6-speed. Because late 80s. As well as it is a dog box transmission, which means that you can shift without the clutch. So going up through the gearbox, you just lift the throttle, slam it into the next gear. Going down the gearbox, just go ahead and lift the throttle, slam it into the next gear. Although I will be right foot braking, heel and towing on downshift, just to keep my timing in sequence. First thing you'll notice with this car, though, besides the fact that it goes really fast, the first meaningful thing that you'll notice with this car, the brakes. They are stupid sensitive and way overpowered. Brakes OP, please nerf. Yes. Like, you can barely even give 50% pressure, 50% input without braking or without locking up the tires pretty much in an instant. Even with the highest levels of downforce, piled onto the car, it just really sensitive. Like, I don't know if there's necessarily a reason for it, but I would say, as downforce goes up, as speed goes up, downforce goes up. It's not a linear equation or relationship. So you get to the really high end of the speed chart with the huge amounts of downforce this car has. Well, then you can use all the brake pressure, but I don't know where you're going to have a straightaway long enough that you're going to have so much downforce piled onto the car that you're going to be braking from like 250 miles an hour, pretty much, with full downforce, because the car can't even do it. Like, I don't know if it's just something like that was on the real car, like maybe the brakes were super powerful to account for the downforce levels and make it easier for the drivers, or something. I don't understand why they are so ridiculous. I mean, especially with cars like this, as you pile more downforce on, like, you're not going to go any faster. They're not, super optimized cars with, next to no drag while still having crap tons of downforce. Don't get me wrong, the thing still goes fast, but I just don't know where in the world you would end up needing that much braking power when the car can't even handle it. So I'd really like to see iRacing release an update to this car featuring multiple brake pad frictions, similar to what they've done with the GT3 and GT1 cars, because that would pretty much fix it, unless this was the low friction compound. But other than that, no complaints. This car is a blast. It is a dream to drive. It goes like nobody's business. If you get it right, it stops like nobody's business. It handles like nobody's business. And, it's a proper manly man car, It's got huge power, huge turbos, huge downforce, huge tires, huge everything. It's even got a gauge in the car that says man, and it goes up when you're on the gas pedal. Some might say it's a boost gauge. I say it's a man gauge, because that's how manly you're being right now. I mean, let's be real. 80s. Come on. Does a manly gauge in your car in the 80s not seem perfectly normal? Exactly. Exactly. In case you're wondering, there is no adjustable boost on this car, which I'm not sure if that's correct or not, but that's the way it is in iRacing. As well as, I'm not sure how much power this car's putting out, because IMSA did do some silly things with the restrictors and everything in order to try and slow cars down, as they were getting a little bit too crazy at the time. Although, given that the man gauge goes up to 100 there, and we can only get it up to 51 even though we're full power, you know, I think it's pretty safe to assume that this is a version that's got a little bit less power to it than what some other seasons might have had. A little bit of understeer, which I think part of that is the setup. Which again, we're not running anything particularly fancy or well optimized. I haven't done really much tweaking at all. But at the same time, you know what? It still feels pretty good. It's definitely very confidence-inspiring because it is so drivable. But really, the thing it reminds me most of, in terms of other experiences within sim racing, here's a blast of nostalgia for you. NASCAR Racing 2003 season, the Redline Developments GTP mod, which featured Group C cars, added into the NASCAR game, because Papyrus. That mod featured Jaguar XJR9, I believe it was. The Toyota 88 CV, known to you Gran Turismo players as the Minolta. And then the Mazda 787B and the Sauber Mercedes C9. So, sort of different cars, but similar types of performance, you know. You know, if you know the history between Papyrus and iRacing, you know, it is pretty understandable that it does kind of have a reminiscent feel to that mod. Of course, I'm sure for a lot of you guys out there, you're like, I don't understand what he's talking about. For some of you guys, you're like, oh, heck yeah, I remember that. For me personally, I'm like, heck yeah, I remember when iRacing started threatening to sue everybody. Hey, fun times. Fun times. What a beast of a car. It really is a beast. So as I mentioned in the Audi video, there was an announcement on Tuesday. This was the announcement that this car is now available. This car will be racing in a series alongside the Audi. It will be a multi-class series, obviously, with this thing being way quicker than the Audi. But, you know, I was kind of questioning what will the popularity be of the Audi. You know, it definitely depends on what was announced, which is, again, this car. And I have to say, I do think there actually might be a chance that this has some popularity, because it's not a difficult car to drive, and the Audi is, well, honestly, the Audi is more difficult to drive than this thing, but you know, it's the cars aren't particularly difficult to drive, which we know with the general iRacing driver base. A lot of people really like easy stuff. Yeah, hey, it is what it is, as well as the fact that, you know, some people say historic racing can't be popular within iRacing, and then they point to the Lotus 49, the Lotus 79, and, you know, the fact that they're not particularly popular cars, and they're not incorrect, you know, although both of them have had pretty solid communities sprout up around them, and run their car and enjoy it, you know, and more power to them. But, you know, they use that as evidence, but I'm not sure, because I do think that this car, as well as the Audi, together in the same series, has more appeal than just random one-off Formula One cars racing in their own little series, in their own little world. You know, spec series with what is 79s. You know, it's kind of silly. And while, you know, we still only have one car per class, you know, in this historic IMSA series that's now ending up running, you know, I think that there are also cars that have enough popularity to them, and people like the cars not because they like a specific, you know, Group C car or specific GTP car or whatever, but because they like what those cars were, what these cars are, which is essentially a pinnacle of development. You know, much the same as, you know, for example, the, you know, MP44 was the top dog of the turbocharged Formula One cars, you know, of its era, of the turbocharged Formula One cars, even within the 80s. But, you know, it's that top dog, you know, absolutely all analog, straightforward, you know, nothing to help you out but your driving ability and your talents. You know, I think it has that same type of appeal, only instead of, you know, with, for example, a Formula One car, here you're talking about sports cars. And, you know, obviously, you know, like I was saying with the Audi, nobody requested that car, but plenty of people have, you know, mentioned a, you know, a GTP car or a Group C car within iRacing, you know, as a car that they'd like to see. And I think this is going to satisfy both crowds, because again, if you like one, you're going to like the other because you like what they are. Like, I don't see people who are, you know, big time, you know, Sauber C9 type of people who are like, yeah, I really love that car. Oh my God, make my day to see it. I don't see people being like, oh, well, no, not interested. Because those people like the 800 horsepower turbocharged, you know, cars with the crazy amounts of downforce and the 80s tires and the H-pattern gearbox. You know, that's the attraction rather than just a specific car. And plus, again, in the case of the Lotus 49 and the Lotus 79, honestly, both cars are much more difficult to drive than either the Audi or the ZXP or whatever the heck this thing is called. ZX Turbo. There we go. Which, again, you know, the iRacing crowd likes easy, so it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I'm not expecting, you know, massive revelation or GT3 like numbers in terms of participation, but I do think it's got a good chance of being reasonably successful and reasonably popular. Take that big looping line there. It's so much fun when you get it right in this thing. I can really get into this car. Like, I've spent way more time just driving here in iRacing between the Audi and this car, and more so this car, you know, than the Audi. I do like this car more than the Audi. Not that I have a problem with the Audi, but GTP, man. GTP. That's all you need to know. So enjoyable to drive. Just plant your foot and go. Until you get on the brakes, in which case don't plant your foot. Don't plant your foot at all. Dear God. I'll also say, it probably won't come through in the video, but the cockpit looks spectacular. The reason why I say it won't come through in the video is because there's a lot of texture on that, you know, the dashboard face, the gray portion. And I think in the YouTube video it's just going to come across as just poo, to be entirely honest. But you know, I can see all the little specular highlights and everything and all that stuff. Just all the reflections. It just looks nice. Really feel like they've outdone themselves on this car, as well as the Audi. I think they've definitely upped their game again. So I'm going to shut up here for this next lap or two, let you guys listen to the sounds of the turbocharged beast. So not exactly the most exciting car in the world in terms of sounds, but you know, it's not exactly bad sounding. I mean, it's livable. There we go. Well, if only we had one of the Jaguar V12s to go along with it. Yeah, iRacing, yeah. As a slightly joking suggestion. Did just get two historic cars out of absolutely nowhere here for a series that came out of absolutely nowhere. So I think asking for anything more would be a little bit greedy. And plus, there really should be a historic stock car with an iRacing. It's kind of mysterious that there's not. Then I'm a big time oval stock car guy, but yeah, it should be here. Just saying. So this is actually going to end the video here. I'll show an external trackside camera. You guys listen to the sounds there, but I'll get on over to the straightaway here, and we'll try and launch it off into China Beach. See how far we can fly, if at all. So hold on to your butts. Don't try this at home. Well, actually, try this at home. Just don't do this at the real track because this will not be good. Here we go. Let's do this. I'm surprised it actually flew. Not even joking. Pretty surprised. Anyways, on the replay camera. Hope you guys enjoyed.
Looks like your car is toast. You'll need a tow back to pit lane. Press and hold your reset button and we'll come and get you.
Thanks, pit crew.